Hi, I'm Sarah Smith. I'm a horticulturalist here at Rogers Gardens, and in this video I'm going to talk to you all about growing Japanese maples here in Southern California. There's a couple of tips and tricks to make things a little bit different growing maples than anywhere else, but once you know these things, you will be an expert. Here at Rogers, we typically start getting our maples in mid-January and in February. And this is really the time when you want to come in because you're going to have the widest selection and you're not going to have to settle for a color that you don't want or a size that you don't want. You're going to be able to pick the perfect one. You want to get them early and get them established now too, because once we start getting warmer, their roots have a little bit harder time getting settled. A lot of times people want to wait until they're completely leafed out, and that's not the best time to really start getting them planted. You can see a little bit of color, they'll start popping pretty soon, and that's fine. But all the tags show really beautiful photos of what they're going to look like, because if you wait too long, the selection really starts to dwindle. So I'm going to go over a couple of the tips that will make your maple really successful in your yard. Maples are going to grow. None of them you're buying are really full size unless you're buying one in a big 24-inch box. When you're buying them sizes like this, pay attention to the size. Pay attention to the shape. Some are weepy, some are upright, some have big trunks, some don't have big trunks. That's really important. When you buy a maple like this and you think, oh, it's so cute and so tiny, look at this. Well, when you flip over the tag, this is actually going to get 6 feet tall. So you want to make sure you're really paying attention to that. Don't buy something cute and tiny and expect it to stay cute and tiny. That is the biggest takeaway that I want you to have when you're done with this video is size is important, shape is important. When you're purchasing your maple, buying a shape that's nice now is important because the shape doesn't change. Plants grow from the tips. This little branch right here will forever stay down here. It's not going to stretch up with the trunk. Different than people, we stretch, plants don't. They grow only from their tips. So if you buy one with a weird structure, it will always have that weird structure. So that's the key thing you want to think about when you're picking your maple. They will have the tags that show the beautiful colors. They'll tell you how much they'll grow per year. Sometimes, not all of them do, but you can always Google that. So if you're like, wow, I want a 6 foot tall maple, how long is this gonna take to get 6 feet tall? This one's only gonna grow about 6 inches a year, so quite some time. So that's really important to consider. Shape, size, color. You want to know all those things before you're buying a maple. Then you want to pick where you're going to plant it. So one of the big things here in Southern California is they are going to need some shading. None of these maples, with the exception of a handful like a bloodgood, are going to be happy in full direct all day long sun here in Southern California. They want to get some dappled shade. So afternoon shade works as well. One of the key things that I like to say is no sun after 1. If you can accomplish that, your maple's going to be super happy. So I have mine up against my house where it's getting morning sun. Once the sun is overhead, it's getting shaded from my house. It's really, really happy there. Dappled shading from another larger tree will also work very well. So no sun after 1, a little bit of shading, your maple's gonna be really happy. When planting your maple, they do want a little bit of acidity. We don't carry types that need a ton of acidity adjustments because we know that's really hard to do here. But when you're first planting it, really think about that, and the fertilizer you use throughout the year should have something that boosts up that acidity a little bit. So if you're planting your maple in the ground, plant it with some of this acid planting mix. Make your hole about twice as wide as the pot is, but not deeper than the pot. You don't want to go a lot deeper because what will happen is that soil will settle over time and now your maple is in a little divot and that's going to create some water issues. So make it bigger than the root ball, so bigger than this little root ball here, but not much deeper. Pull that dirt out to the side and then mix that 50-50 with the planting mix and then backfill it with that. That will help with the acidity. If you're gonna plant it in a pot, potting soil is a must, not planting mix. So do not plant in planting mix, plant in potting soil. This is one of our brand favorites here, Malibu, drains really well. And then use some acid fertilizer with that. and mix that into the potting soil. I say when you're planting things in a pot, splurge on good potting soil because you really ideally only want to do it once, right? So splurge on a good potting soil, mix it with a little bit of this acid fertilizer, mix that in. That will help with the acidity. When you're planting it into the pot, use a good potting soil and mix it with some of this acid fertilizer. That will help with that acidity. When you're fertilizing throughout the year, use some of this acid mix. This is going to be one that will help boost up that acidity, change that pH for us a little bit. You don't need to get complicated and get one of those pH measuring kits or anything like that, because these varieties don't need a crazy amount of acidity, but this will help make that plant nice and lush and beautiful. The other thing that I want to show you, and this is really a great tip, a lot of people skimp over this and don't do it, and you will find your maple will be super happy, is gypsum. Gypsum will help displace some of the salts that we have in our soil. We have a lot of salt in our soil here in Southern California, and that creates tip burn. So a lot of times you'll see these beautiful maples, but then when you get up close, the leaf has like a little edging of tip burn on it. Gypsum helps displace that salt, and that's a really great thing, especially to get your maple established into the ground, is to have it in an environment where it's not going to be pulling up that salt on those fresh young leaves of a young tree and have all that tip burn. So use it as directed on the back of this box. This is a really great thing to have in your back pocket here in Southern California. I love using this, and we have a lot of clay soil and a lot of kind of gummy soil. When you plant, you'll notice that it's not a great quality. If you're mixing it with a good planting mix, add some of this in there too, because it helps break up that clay soil. So this is a great thing for a maple, and I think if you walk out with one of these maples, you definitely should have this. You definitely should have some acid fertilizer and the right mixture of soil either in a pot or in the ground. If you've got these couple of things, your maple's gonna be thrilled. Talking about planting in pots. Maples are great in pots, especially because a lot of times where you want to put it, you might not have the sun requirement that it needs, that no sun after 1. And so many times people compromise and they put it in a spot where it's not going to be happy, and then the maple's never pretty. If you put it in a pot, you can move it around to wherever it's going to be happy in your yard. But make sure you use the right size pot. If you know the size that the plant is going to get, plant accordingly to a larger pot, right? So if you're going to have a plant that's going to get 6 feet tall, make sure you're putting in a pot that's about 24-ish inches across and wide. Don't go too small, because then you're going to stunt the plant a lot. You can bonsai maples a little bit if you really know how to do it, and you can keep them in smaller containers, but it is a lot of work. If you're going to let it get to be its full glory, make sure you're not constraining it in a teeny tiny little pots. They cannot stay in these grower pots. You don't want to plant it directly into a pot that's only a couple of inches bigger than the pot that it came in. Otherwise, you're going to have to bump it up into another pot and keep doing that and doing that and doing that. And I always say, put in a large pot so it's happy. It's less work on you, less watering, and then you can move it around for the right kind of sunlight as well. And when you're putting it in that pot, make sure it's soil all the way down. The thing that our grandmothers and grandfathers taught us back in the day about putting gravel on the bottom of the pot or putting weird things. I've heard packing peanuts and water bottles, all kinds of stuff. Don't do any of that. Soil all the way down. If you're worried too much about soil coming out the bottom of that drainage hole, you can put a little screen in there. We sell little cut screens, and that way it'll keep the soil from coming out the bottom. But gravel is only going to create water problems. People think that helps make it drain better. It does not. It actually holds more water. If you've ever dumped a pot that had gravel in the bottom, you will notice that it smells really bad because the water doesn't drain well. That is the wrong thing to do. You'll see that information all over the internet. Let's stop doing that. Soil straight down all the way through the pot. Nothing else. Don't create layers, because it's going to just create weird drainage problems over time. Let's talk about watering. Maples do like to be moist. They're not necessarily a drought tolerant plant, so they want to be moist, but they do not want to be soggy, and they want to have that good drainage. Make sure you're keeping them well watered, so that way the top of the soil does have a chance to dry out here and there. So I'm not talking watering every single day for 3 minutes. I'm talking about watering really deeply past the roots. So that takes a long time for the water to get past there, so you want to do a good amount of water past the roots, but then you want it to dry out. Watered every 3 to 4 days when we're having our hot weather. The key thing that maples don't like around here in Southern California is our dry weather and Santa Ana winds. So if you can protect them against that, they'll be really happy. We're not moist like areas in Oregon or in Washington where you see these thrive really well because we don't have that kind of moist humidity here. We're on the drier side. So that's the thing that they really struggle with. So keeping them well watered is good. So don't try to overcompensate our dry weather by overwatering because you'll just rot your maple out. The last thing I want to talk about is when things go wrong, right? So if we have pests on our maple, what do we do about that? The most common thing that you see pest-wise on maples is things like aphids, sometimes whitefly and mealybugs on our maples. I always say plants are just like people. If they have a lot of problems, that kind of means we're doing something wrong, right? So if we're not eating well, if we're not sleeping well, that's when we tend to get sick and we stay sick for longer. Plants are the same way. So if someone comes to me and they have a lot of pests or a lot of problems going on their maples, that tells me that they're also doing something wrong and the plant generally is not happy. It's in the wrong light, it's not getting enough water, the soil's not acidified, it's not getting fed correctly, things like that. But we do need to treat the problem that we have, treat the aphids, but we also need to change how we're treating our maple in general. But when you have something like that going on, the best thing to use is insecticidal soap. This works really well, it's really mild, it's organic, so you don't have to worry about burning your maple. And it's something that you want to apply very lightly but consistently. So if you have aphids, make sure you spray it and then spray it again and do a couple rounds of that, because the first time you spray it, you're not going to kill all the bugs, right? And what's going to wind up happening is they're going to breed and have another outbreak. So it's kind of like taking an antibiotic, right? You don't want to just take the first 3 pills and then stop with all the rest of them. You need to spray consistently till the problem is gone. A lot of times people will come in and go, I sprayed and it didn't work. Well, they only sprayed it once. And make sure that we're not using household soaps on our plants. A lot of misinformation comes around saying, oh, you can use things like Dawn mixed with water on your plant. And yes, that will kill the bugs, but that will also harm the plant. All household soaps that you get, all dish soaps, even the organic ones, are just a degreaser. And a degreaser is going to ruin the leaves because it's going to break up that waxy protective layer that all the leaves have. So all detergents are degreasers and they're bad for your plants. So let's not spray them with those household soaps. Make sure you're using an insecticidal soap. This is a different formula and that will make it so the plant will stay happy, but the bugs will also be killed and you're not opening your plant up to other pathogens by stripping that protective layer off of the leaves. So stop using that. Let's not spread that information around anymore. Insecticidal soap is different than household soaps. So if you've got all those tips under your belt, you're going to have a very successful, happy maple in your yard. Pick the right size, know how big it's going to get. Pick your area, make sure you've got good lighting, no sun after 1. Make sure you're using the right planting mix or potting soil, depending on where you're putting it, that you're doing that acidifying fertilizer, a little bit of gypsum in the ground if you're planting in the ground to displace all those salts that we have, right? And then if you've got problems, make sure you're spraying it right with the right insecticidal soap spray for all those bug problems. And if you're doing all that stuff, your plant's gonna be super happy. It sounds like a lot of things, but really it's not. And then you don't have to keep coming in and going, there's something wrong, because you've done it all right and your plant will be really happy. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube page because there's tons of different videos there. We make a lot of new content all the time, and we have a video for almost every gardening question you can possibly have. So make sure you go check that out. You got a question, I guarantee we have an answer on our YouTube page. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you follow us on all our different social media platforms. You'll be up to date on all the fun things going on here at Rogers, and there's constantly fun things going on here at Rogers and new things coming up. And you'll know when all the new plants come in because we always make announcements about that as well. So stay tuned, be well, be safe, and happy gardening. Bye.